Hope you're having a good day. What I want to do today is paint a small, quick, and dirty ridgeline scene. Um, and I'm going to start by thinking about my composition. So what I want to do first is shift you a little bit there. So what I want to do first is establish the composition. So I'm going to draw basically a few triangles here. First one I'm going to do is going to be I'm trying to think of how I want them formatted, like so. Right across, drawing right down the vertice of my sheet. The next one will be at roughly a 30-degree angle toward here, and then the same here. And now what I want to do is roughly sketch in an S shape, kind of like this. And this will form the shape of our ridge, so that I will have a shape filling the rough size of each of these triangles. This one's probably a little bit different, but in here, there'll be some different forms that'll change this as we go down to kind of change the slope. And there'll be some kind of curvature there as it kind of rattles down. Cool. In this section, we have some distant ridges, so we'll be mindful of those. And we have our a little bit of sky, I think, in this section. Well, actually, I think this is mostly just going to be curvaturing down. So these ridges here may not even be that big a factor. This may just kind of be a matter of me pushing and moving paint around down. So with a plan in place, what I want to do next is prepare some paint. The first thing I'm going to do is think about color composition. I think my painting is going to be mostly green. So I'm going to grab some permanent rose, place that, a little bit of that onto my canvas. This probably seems like a weird color choice, but I assure you I am not crazy. And I do have a plan here. So I'm going to then apply a little bit of anti-drying formula on that. A few drops. I'm going to take a nice wet brush. And I'm going to mix that in to my red paint, which is really probably going to appear a little more pink. And I'm going to apply a pink wash to the canvas. And the reason why I'm choosing pink is I think green is going to be the most common color of this painting, and the red should really let me use that green much more in a much more complementary fashion. And this will let me have a little bit of a warmer feel than when I painted yesterday. What I'm trying to do is also play with color while I also play with composition a little. Also forgot to take the painting down again, so we'll be dealing with my sticky fingers again as I kind of carefully try to keep the painting in place. Just trying to smooth this out to the best of my ability here. Not really trying to be mindful of anything, just trying to create some color on the canvas. Grab some more for our bottom third here. Maybe here I am trying to be a touch more mindful of the direction that I want the shape that I want things to go. More to help my eye later on than to do anything else. This is really a speed painting, something that's really meant for practice. So I'm not really concerned with how anything looks or how anything feels. This is just a at bat, as I say, an opportunity for me to pick up the brush, kind of get used to how I want it to look and feel. I kind of just caught myself drawing a little bit. And I kind of want to make sure that I'm also trying to think more like a painter and less like a drawer. And really just make sure that I'm using the full length of the stick of the brush. I suspect these black spots that I'm seeing here are probably from this brush being a little bit dirty from last night's painting. That's okay. It'll all work itself out eventually. Cool. Now that I have some texture on the canvas, what I want to do is grab some cadmium yellow. And right next to my red, I'm going to put down some cadmium yellow. Quite a bit more. And what I want to really do is create a very warm sky. Now I'm also going to, into that cad yellow, mix in some matte gel. Which will basically help our paint become a little more like an oil, or it'll flow a little better. I'm mixing all that in. I'm kind of letting some of the red get in there too, more by accident, but happy accidents are always welcome. And this should create a very warm, vibrant orange for us to use as a base tone for our sky. I'm also okay with some of the anti-drying agent getting in, because that'll also help it flow and move a little bit. Maybe help get a little bit liquidy. Just kind of flattening it out and scraping some onto the canvas. And now, well, I'm going to be a little bold and just put down some paint and see how things go. I'll rinse my knife off. And with my brush, I'm going to try to spread this out a bit. Using kind of like crisscrossy strokes. Should be mindful and grab more stick. Cleaning my brush. Stamping it dry. Back into my paint. Cleaning the brush. Stamping it dry. Back into the paint. I'm really trying to let this blend as well. Maybe vary my directionality of the brush a little bit to create some texture and feel. Just trying to fill the canvas a little bit. We're not really going to see a lot of sky in this painting. I don't really want to take a large amount of time with this. This ridge is going to fill up most of it, and like only this little corner here is probably going to be left untouched. But having this base color, I think here is kind of nice. I'm kind of liking the way it looks. So I'm basically going to fill the canvas with this and kind of be mindful of where I want to create bright spots versus where I want to create dark spots. So I'm envisioning my light source being on this side of the ridge. So I'm going to try to put more light colored paint on this side of the ridge to act as kind of as bright spots for our eye to grab onto. Trying to be mindful of that line and also trying to kind of follow some of the shapes that we'll have later on. Again, more to guide my eye than anything else as I go along. I'm trying to also let the paint be a little bit thicker as we approach the foreground and allow myself to apply more paint. And basically I'm using the darker areas to dry it off and clean it a little more and to remove some of the excess paint. So our darker areas to dry the brush, remove excess paint. Making sure I said that right. Drying it off again. Back into more paint and again trying to adjust. It's almost like I'm trying to sketch with my brush now instead of my pencil. Grab a fresh paper towel and pull the brush through it. Okay, just trying to be mindful of where I want the ridge line to be, to follow that S shape that I created in the beginning, and to really let the paint become more and more orange or red as I get lower in elevation. Cool. I think that is a good base for now. Now, where do I want to start? So I think I need to... Yeah, I think it's time to add in some green. So I'm going to put a lot of phthalo green on my palette, right in the bottom corner here. And I'm going to then also mix in more matte gel. Again, a lot of it probably. Come on. Looks like toothpaste a little bit with the green and the white. Cool. I don't want to mix in the red and the yellow yet, but basically what I'm going to do as I paint is I'm going to draw these colors close to each other and really kind of form a more nuanced look at what I want. Yeah, I'm just going to scrape some of, make sure I scrape some of that back onto the palette like that. Push it back in. Pull it down. And wiping it. I'm also, I think, going to introduce some titanium white. And I will put that, well, I have used most of this tube, if not all of it. Cool, that is not enough. So that's okay, I have a plan for that, and it's right here. Much bigger tube of cat white. Titanium white. I also do have some Payne's Gray handy, but I'm not going to use that quite yet. More gloss gel, or sorry, matte gel. Mixing that into the white. And what I want to create first is a kind of like a misty sense on the upper left-hand portion of the painting here. Cleaning off my palette knife one more time. And I'm going to use the palette knife for this. I'm just take a little bit of that mixture and I'm going to just apply it and try to spread it out as thin as I can. And now I'm going to do something that's a bit upside down next. I'm going to take my yellow, not a lot of paint, and I'm going to begin to apply it here and try to move it in this direction. In this direction, trying to not make it look as if it's flowing uphill. Cool. Now, cleaning my knife again, I'm going to grab some of the green, not a lot of it, and try to work in a kind of similar way. This is a bit hard because I am obviously right-handed, so getting this to behave and move in the direction that I want to is going to be a little bit challenging, but I think doable. Where I think I'm going to rotate the painting to make it easier for my hand to move in the direction it needs to move. And here I really do just want to kind of blend it in with that white under it quite a lot and let it really kind of lose a lot of its texture. I'm really okay with that. And I really want even some of that orange and red beneath to shine through a lot. What I'm kind of doing here is more filling a zone than I am painting an object. It's okay if that zone kind of bleeds into where our other areas are because we're going to paint over it quite a lot. Cleaning my palette knife again. A little touch of our white, tiny, tiny touch. as I layer this, the knife will kind of grab hold of stuff and will kind of begin to texture things for me. Cleaning it again. Touch more white. I'm going to get a little bold here in a minute. And I'm going to take a touch of our yellow goldish color and work that in from this corner. See how that looks. It's actually looking pretty interesting, I think. So I think I want to keep doing that. Cleaning it off. Going back to our yellow. I think this is helping to eliminate some of the kind of toothpastey feel that I had going on in terms of color scheme. And this kind of, I think, will give the effect that I'm applying too much pressure. Will give the effect that this part of our landscape is brighter than the others, and there's kind of like light shining over the ridge from where maybe we have a setting sun or something like that. Almost too much light coming through for our eye to perceive any detail. Now let's take some green. And mix from the bottom here. Kind of blend these areas in. Let's clean the knife. And let's try to maybe get into some more of the red color that we had in the beginning as well. And just try to put that in as well. And I really am just trying to blend these out. I don't really want the eye to perceive anything here. I'm trying to make sure that I start the green on the lower part of the painting and the yellow higher up. That way I don't accidentally put a dark spot on top of our much lighter area, or vice versa. I'm starting to see my ridge begin to form now, so I'm trying to be mindful of that. As I apply color to it. Kind of mixing a little bit on my palette right now to see if I can grab some paint that is not quite as darker green. Let's see how this looks. I'm going to place this here at first to see how this looks. And then see if I can't marry this in here a little bit as well. Turning it around to help me get into this area a little more better. Being mindful of where I'm jamming my thumb. Hands are already a mess. But that's okay. Fresh paper towel. Ah. And I'm going to put down some more of our permanent rose. Kind of right in with the cad yellow. More matte gel. To make sure our paint flows. One thing that is annoying about the palette I'm using is that they're not very good at getting paint on the palette. That is definitely a skill I've not mastered yet in my 2 weeks of painting. Yes, this is only my second. This is really only my, I think, 5th painting I've ever made. At least in terms of real art, physical art, traditional art. That is mixed in. I'm just going to come right in this top corner here. Apply a layer of our permanent rose. And the more paint I put on here, the more the more other paint will stick to it. So onto some yellow to mix into that. And I'm going to follow along our ridge with this at first. But I also want to make sure that I'm pulling it up into the sky area a little bit. Back for more paint. For more paint, kind of mixing letting the red and the yellow mix a little bit to make kind of a goldish color. Letting the knife also mix these on canvas and kind of glide across. looking so well that I'm actually spreading that on more than I originally thought I would. Cleaning the brush up, the palette knife off. Back into that same kind of color. Letting some more red mix in. And kind of letting this spread over a little bit. Mix in, especially in the top corner here. Notice how I am not afraid to redo things or go over things again. Especially as I find I'm making something that is matching what my eye, with my, letting my brain, eye, and hand all kind of work together a little better. One of the main reasons why I'm trying to paint much more often and trying to get these more at bats is really trying to make sure that I have the hand-eye coordination to execute what my brain and eye are seeing, so my hand can follow through and kind of give me that confidence to paint things that are a little bolder. And this piece I think is definitely going to be more bold than what I've tried previously. Yellow gold, maybe a little bit of a green as well. And they'll kind of get happy together. And then kind of letting this blend in a bit. And this I'm going to have to probably turn so that I am facing down in this direction so that my blade can move in the direction that I want it to. And what I'm really trying to do here is also create a much smoother transition between the red side of the painting and the green side. Very light and gentle pressure. Cleaning my palette knife off again. I don't know, I keep calling it a brush. Just letting it lightly glide across. Damn it. Damn it. Enough paint. Back into my more goldish color, I think. Again, letting this glide across. Trying to also remove some of those more defined edges. Just a little bit. And take some green, some red, some yellow, and mix that all together. Really letting my palette get messy intentionally. Just letting this glide. I don't really want the eye to be able to tell where the sky begins and where these distant ridges begin. Acrylic is very sticky paint, and if I apply even the slightest bit too much pressure, it will let me know immediately. That's when you see when it sticks like that. Cool. Now, back into that same kind of thing. Just kind of trying to pull this across. Pulling it across in a very smooth kind of way to try to make this look. I'm trying to let it also try to catch the paint under it. Letting the palette knife do the work for me. I'm trying to actively not think about it, and I'm trying to let the knife just kind of work. Ooh, I'm making a nice little purple. Cool. I don't really want there to be a sense of where one area begins and where one ends. I just kind of want this to trend downward and fill in this triangle of the painting. Cool. Now, I would like some more of this goldish green color. Pivoting my canvas again. I'm going to work this in here. I'm just trying to really blend these two areas. Oh, interesting red. This looks really nice. So I might do some more of that. And we'll have, I think, that reddish color form our sky, almost like a sunset. Only a touch of paint. I began to stick there because I was running out of paint. So back into our lovely color. And I'm going to try to follow this line like that. And then pull up a little bit from there. And then try to see if I can't pull this across. One thing I do want to be careful of is making brown on the canvas by mistake, which I kind of did in that top corner there. It's okay off in the corner like that, I think, because that's not a place where I want the viewer's eye to get stuck anyway. So I think having that there is okay. But I am just now trying to kind of put the finishing touches on this sky area. I'm going to go back into our red a little bit, permanent rose, and do something similar along here. Damn it. And really let that kind of glide across and mix. And really, that's actually kind of cool. Kind of getting the impression of a cloud a little bit there. Interesting. And trying to just gently pull this out and drag it along. There, I'm going to turn this back the way I want it to be, back upright. Take a second look at it. I think that's looking pretty good. Maybe a little bit brown, but I don't really want to go back and touch it anymore until it's dry a little bit. Maybe I'll apply a layer on in a little while. What I want to do now is mix in some more of our greens, reds, and yellows. I want to come back to this area. I want to begin to make this a little more defined. My knife is messy, so we clean it, back in, more paint, right back into the same area. Clean, more paint, right back into the same area. By mixing colors, I am also creating more vibrant texture on the canvas because it's giving some more indications of varied tone. And letting your eye interpret those different tones and textures as changes to stuff. So in this case, shifting from a sky to a more distant ridge. Cool. Continuing to take more of this color. And slowly working lower into the painting. It's very important that I'm patient here and very important that I'm letting the paint slowly find its way onto the canvas. More mixing, lower onto the canvas again. Getting a little more phthalo green than I want, so I may have to pour out some more cadmium yellow. But again, I'm really trying to let this be layered on as well. I intend this to be very thick. Paper towel's done. And for now, what I'm really trying to do is just get my base layer of this green established. And onto the canvas so that I have something that is very smooth to pull any subsequent paint across. Cool. Cleaning my knife on the canvas a little bit as well, just to get some paint on there. But being mindful that I'm only putting the right colors in the right areas. More cad yellow, right next to our green. And I'm just going to kind of pull a chunk of that down and in. And then come back into this area. Apply some lighter tones. Taking some more of our red, mixing it with the cad to get more golden color again. And back in. Back to that goldish color again. Letting that mix in. Cool. Now let's let that a little more. We're gonna follow kind of down here though. Not quite letting it get as high onto the ridge. We'll take some of our more darker greenish color. Come in here with that. Let's create a little shadow. What I'm also doing here is I was seeing some of the canvas showing through, and I don't want it to disrupt the texture of the impasto finish. So going to now re-go over some of these spots a little bit. And really let the different layers of paint blend together. Very gentle pressure. Notice how when I apply too much pressure, it gets right down to the canvas. And all that means is apply more paint. Means I pulled at it too much. Cool. Now let's take some more green and push that over here by our red and our yellow. Let's try to make kind of greenish, grayish purple. A lot of paint on right now, so we need to make sure I start away from any areas that are too important. I want to kind of let this creep up and in. Now I'm going to take yellow and mix it into that. I'm going to just work my way down from that line, using that line as a guide and trying to make sure that I'm blending along the way to remove that line. So I don't intend that to be in the finished product. Just letting this more yellowish color glide across the top of the paint that's below. And letting it get darker as it approaches where our foreground will be. Foreground in quotation marks. That's actually probably more midground, but you get the idea. Cool. Now, I think this side of the painting is looking good. I want to shift my attention over to this side. And what I want to begin doing is painting in the actual ridge. By now, everything on the top here should be relatively dry, especially in the top corner there where it's a bit lighter. So yellow and greenish color, shifting this over just a little bit to give my hand some room. And right here, I'm going to start making the main ridge. Here I'm trying to be very careful. I don't want it to seem like this is flat. I want it to seem like this is dropping off. I'll probably use some green in a moment here to put that into perspective properly. So let's grab some of our darker color here. Just work along here to create that difference. Cool, back into my lighter color. Letting the ridge begin to really take shape. I'm also be mindful to have much shorter strokes when I'm on top. I think that would be much more of a defined area when, as I come to the slope, I'm letting it kind of drop off. Like so. There are never enough paper towels. Darker color. And again, I want it to seem like the light's shining over the ridge. So I really want to make sure I have darker forms in this triangle here. And at this point, I really am using phthalo green as my black. I may introduce some Payne's gray. The problem with introducing Payne's gray into this painting is it's very blue. And I'm not sure that introducing that blue will disrupt the overall harmony of the painting. Back to our brighter colors. Letting the ridge have some contours. As I kind of mix these together and angle my palette knife in the direction that I think the mountain will go. Hopefully my sleeve isn't in the paint. This center area here is really going to be one of the hardest parts of the painting because so much of the painting has to really work together. And so many different elements are converging on this one little spot. Cool, I really like the way that's capturing how this is kind of moving across and then down, right? I'm looking at having that clear V shape there. Cool, let's grab some darker paint. Begin to work this side of it a little bit. More cad yellow. I need even more cat yellow. Likely more permanent rose as well. Oops. Never enough paper towels. That one I was doing more to mark out where I'm going. This is almost pure phthalo green now. Here what I'm doing is just trying to fill in where this ridge is going to be. Still letting it mix and blend. Really just wanted to fill this area. While still letting some texture and color show through too. Cool. Now we have filled in most of our canvas. We need more paper towels. Need more paper towels. Always need more paper towels. Now, back into our kind of golden cad yellowish mixture. What I'm going to begin doing is just following along here where our ridge is going to change this S turn. What we're basically going to do is complete that turn and begin to work our way into this part of the painting. And from here, everything's going to go in this direction. There will also be a kind of line here, but it's going to flow in the same direction as this. Before I do that, I want to put in the line. Again, I want to use this kind of golden color to do that. Pardon me. And as we go down the ridge, we're going to switch from gold to green. It's the same way we did more further back. As we get closer to the foreground, I also want to let it flatten out a little bit and be less of a point. For now, I'm just focusing on trying to get the contours to behave the way that I want them to. And it'll make sure that I'm getting paint on the canvas and spreading that down in the direction that it needs to go in. And the main direction this needs to flow in is from right to left. Was absolutely just questioning which one's which in my head. Trying to make some more of that purplish color I had before, to use that to kind of blend in here and pull down and blur this somewhat. I don't want this to be crystal clear to the eye. But I'll probably come in with some yellow in a moment after I have some paint on the canvas. I'm just going to keep working this color downward. Again, giving something for me to grasp onto when I put on the highlights of the reds and yellows. I just mix some of the more permanent rose and phthalo green together again. Maybe some more of the permanent rose. Again, trying to get a really kind of like purplish hue. And after all, it is Purple Mountain's Majesty, so that's kind of what I'm trying to go for here. A little bit, that kind of greenish purplish hue that forest can kind of give off sometimes. But again, this is really the base layer of the foreground, so we're going to apply a lot more paint on top of this. I'm going to grab enough paint there. It's kind of nice to almost have a full canvas with more paper towels. This roll's almost done, and I'm using up a lot more when I use the palette knife versus the brush. Cool. Our canvas is full. Let's start to add some highlights and some definition here. Back into my kind of goldish color, I'm going to put a decent amount on the palette knife. I'm just going to kind of start working my way along the ridge. Pulling down, following the contours, letting it mix with the paint underneath. Not really worrying about the little stuff like that little guy. And kind of letting the ridge take its final shape and form. Just continuing to work my way down. Letting this blend. I think I might need even more cadmium yellow, which is a problem because I don't have a lot left. So let's do this color here. Begin to work its way down. Basically what I'm doing again is I'm starting at a higher elevation on the ridge and I'm working my way down lower in. Letting the knife combine and mix and do wonderful things with the paint that we just applied. This is probably the last of the cadmium yellow. It means I'm going to Michael's this weekend. What I applied just now is basically pure cadmium yellow. And I'm letting it mix on the canvas. And really letting my knife kind of spread it out and thin it out. Because I really want this spot to be bright. I really want the eye to be drawn to the ridge. And I want you to follow it deeper in. Just noticing how that was sticking up a little bit. Let's go into the red. I'm trying to be mindful of the contours of the ridge line and how steep I want it to seem. Take a chunk of the cadmium yellow, mix it in with our red. Get some more of that kind of goldish color. Start to work it in over here. More of that goldish color. And start to work it over here as well. This is how we're going to define our foreground here versus our background with this color right here. And this color is going to set this area back from the rest of the ridge. Continually trying to spread the paint lower. Back into that same color. You can see how that now immediately is now popping forward. Cool. Now, let's take some more of this purplish color and kind of work our way from here and begin working our way down again a little bit. Letting it blend again. I'm going to take that off my palette knife and then begin to just kind of soften these edges a little bit. And then back into our goldish color. And again, working our way down. Ooh, that's spraying nicely there. What this is also doing is kind of giving us a third line pointing into that center spot where that ridge seems to now be kind of complex. These things are kind of generally joining and moving upward. Basically, what I have to keep doing is just being modified to keep layering in more dark and light areas as I go along. And as I do that, it'll kind of naturally apply texture and apply the illusion of stuff. I can't think of a better way to say it. The illusion of a detailed foreground, even though I'm kind of just still smearing paint together in the same way that I was before. And as I do this, more and more of the painting is becoming filled in. Some more of our lighter green. In this painting, I'm kind of focusing on the mountain, so it's not going to be any near-ground vegetation or rocks or anything like that. It's just going to be the mountain itself stealing the show. Again, really letting texture define the shape of things as well as the paint itself. Again, the direction of the palette knives helps the eye see contours. It's creating this kind of striation you guys are seeing. Cool. All right, now, man, I put out a lot today anyway. I barely used it. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Let's use that in the foreground a little bit. Let's see how that looks. This was a very bold choice on my part that I may not have thought through. But I think it's actually working quite well. Back to our darker green, starting low on the canvas, building up to the rest of the image, smoothing out some as well. Take some more of our green, make this color a little bit darker, and we're in. We want this area to be lighter than that area. So having this lighter shade here is good. I can always pull darker shades across top of it to mellow it out some. What's kind of cool as well is this is not exactly what I envisioned when I started. But I'm starting to become really pleased with how it turned out. It looks kind of surrealistic almost, um, and the fact that it has that very, orangey glowing sky and these very texture-driven choices, and very yellow and green. Whoop, hair. Um, and I really think that's kind of helping this to have a really cool tone to it overall. Hmm. It's also very important that I not do what I just did there, which is kind of really overwork one particular area. It's really very important that I continue to be very gentle as I'm moving through these. Oops, like as I literally am talking about it, I used way too much force and I scraped a lot of paint off the canvas. So let's go right back in there and try to fix that and recover that up. And really what I need to be focusing on now is just getting paint on the canvas and getting things applied in a way that is getting us closer to having this be completed. And like I really should not be putting my knife anywhere near the actual ridgeline anymore. But I'm a tinkerer, and tinkerers like to tinker. Don't you dare do that. Trying to create more of that purple color on my palette right now. Again, trying to get rid of some of that brightness of the green, letting it become more gray, more purplish brown, like that. As I pull us down. More paper towel. See, as it gets flattened out like that, there's just less paint on the knife, and there's less there's less thing on the canvas. Therefore, the plastic is just scraping on the canvas. And mixing it almost smoothly, glide it over with no pressure. Cool. Now, the final thing that I want to do before I call this one a day is to add in and kind of re-go over paint for days. Re-go in and make sure that I'm adding in some of these highlights again and making sure that I'm reinforcing where I want the ridge to be and using this cad yellow to do that for me. Really make sure that I'm pulling the cad yellow down across the lower part of the painting and back across the top of the ridge to kind of give that added extra bump of the secondary ridge, and then pulling that down again, and then we're back down into here. And the cad yellow is really how I'm getting that illusion of detail. I do want to work quickly as well to make sure the rest of the paint isn't really dry. Back in. Working first upward and then downward. The beautiful part of painting, there are no rules except for the ones you make for yourself. And things are able to be as they are. When I started this, I did not realize that cad yellow was going to steal my show the way that it has. I'm starting to really like this now. It's kind of important that I try not to work from dark to light, and I only work from light to dark right now. As I pull these streaks of yellow down into the corner. See there, I pulled back from dark to light and it removed a lot of what I just did. So we're back in. Cool. A little more. I think I just want to darken the corner a little bit more. Cool. I think that is done. So thank you for watching if you did. I appreciate it. If you are new here, please like and subscribe. I am very new to this. I've only been streaming real painting for a couple of weeks now. And I'm really looking forward to letting you guys see me learn and develop. And thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Whoa.